What really happened to A&P? A&P History. Do you remember the good old days? When grocery shopping was a different experience? When the corner store was only the size of a large living room? Goods were kept in barrels, and you had to ask the salesperson to fetch each item for you. When you needed to visit many different places just to buy meat, bread, and vegetables. Yeah, those days are long gone. But there was a name that changed it all. A name that didn't just sell groceries, but became a familiar destination for millions of Americans. A giant retail empire that redefined the way we shopped for food. That name was A&P, the Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company. At their peak, they had thousands of stores across the country, a power that was unmatched. People used to say A&P was as famous as McDonald's or Google are today. They captured up to 10% of the nation's total grocery spending. Hard to believe, isn't it? But then, almost as quietly as they rose, A&P disappeared. What really happened to A&P? How did a once mighty empire fade into oblivion? Join us as we rewind the clock and uncover the incredible story of the rise, the golden age, and the unfortunate decline of an American icon. Starting with tea and coffee, the early days. The story begins in 1859 in Manhattan, New York. A man named George Gilman, after inheriting assets from his family's leather business, decided to pursue a different, much more refined path, trading in tea and coffee. In the same year, he founded the Great American Tea Company, initially just wholesaling tea to other store owners. By 1861, Gilman was fully committed to the tea and coffee industry, leaving the leather business behind. But Gilman was a visionary. In 1863, recognizing the growing demand for high-quality tea at affordable prices, he changed his business model. He cut out the middleman and opened retail stores, selling directly to consumers. Quickly, he opened 5 small stores in New York City. Gilman's method was simple, yet incredibly effective, offering consistent quality at lower prices. By controlling the blending, roasting, and packaging of his products, he could undercut competitors. He even pioneered one of the country's earliest mail-order services, allowing people in rural America, including farmers and gold prospectors out west, to buy his goods. By 1866, the company was valued at over $1 million. In 1869, the historic completion of the first transcontinental railroad opened up new opportunities for Gilman and his business partner, George Huntington Hartford. Together, they renamed the company the Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, or A&P. This marked the beginning of A&P's expansion as they began selling prepackaged tea under branded labels like Thea Nectar, an innovative move at a time when most tea was sold loose. Although the Great American Tea Company name helped build the brand in the early days, A&P quickly became the main brand known to the public. In 1871, the company launched a hugely successful marketing strategy, offering premiums. By giving away free gifts like glassware or lithographic prints with purchases, A&P didn't just encourage repeat customers, it created excitement and loyalty. By the early 1870s, what started as a humble tea and coffee business had grown into a retail empire. Just imagine, back then, shopping was often a simple transaction. But A&P started adding that little something extra, a small gift, a thank you for your loyalty. It wasn't just buying and selling, it was building a relationship. The golden age of a giant. George Huntington Hartford became a pivotal figure in the company. After Gilman retired from active management in 1878, Hartford took over. He, along with his sons, George Jr., born 1864, and John, born 1872, ran A&P for over 40 years. Under their leadership, A&P expanded dramatically. In 1912, to combat rising food prices, John Hartford proposed a bold idea, the economy store. With just $3,000 in initial capital and a single manager, no fancy fixtures, this store operated with a gross margin of only 12%, compared to 22% in other stores. Customers loved the low prices. In just a few months, sales skyrocketed. The economy store concept fueled A&P's phenomenal growth. By 1915, the chain had 1,600 stores. After World War I, A&P continued its rapid expansion. They began adding meat, fresh produce, and traditional grocery items. By 1925, A&P operated nearly 14,000 stores. Sales reached $400 million, and profits were around $10 million. They were the clear leader in the grocery world. In 1927, A&P expanded into Canada. By 1929, they had 200 stores in Ontario and Quebec. 1930 was an incredible peak. A&P had 16,000 stores and reported sales of $2.9 billion, an unprecedented figure at the time. They captured a quarter of the grocery market share in their operating areas and around 10% nationwide. Nobody could match them. A&P was twice as big as Sears and 4 times the size of Kroger. Their dominance was unparalleled, and the company was synonymous with the American grocery shopping experience. And then, the Great Depression hit, a harsh test for everyone. A&P store during the Depression. But A&P's cautious, debt-free strategy paid off. The company had expanded with minimal debt, and its reputation for unbeatable prices became a lifesaver for cash-strapped consumers. From 1929 to 1932, A&P achieved an astounding $110 million in after-tax profits. The Hartford family also received generous dividends, showing A&P's ability to weather even the toughest economic storms. However, A&P's success wasn't without its critics. Independent grocers, unable to compete with A&P's pricing power, began to protest. By the mid-1930s, the anti-chain store movement gained momentum. In 1935, Texas Congressman Wright Patman proposed a special tax on chain stores. Although Patman's initial bill didn't pass, the issue didn't disappear. In 1936, he co-sponsored the Robinson-Patman Act, which sought to limit the bulk discounts A&P had pioneered by prohibiting price discrimination. While the act was intended to protect small retailers, it threatened A&P's entire business model. A&P responded fiercely. The company hired a seasoned lobbyist in Washington and made a surprising move, publicly supporting the unionization efforts of the American Federation of Labor. This unexpected alliance helped soften opposition from labor groups. Even more remarkably, the Hartford brothers published an open letter to the public, warning that a new tax on chain stores would lead to higher food prices, a message that resonated strongly during the Depression. It was a calculated move to remind consumers of A&P's vital role in keeping food affordable for everyday Americans. Ultimately, the proposed chain store tax never became law. Redefining the shopping experience, the self-service supermarket. In 1930, the first supermarket opened in California. On the East Coast, Michael J. Cullen, a former A&P employee, opened his first King Cullen supermarket. Traditional small grocery stores suddenly felt threatened. After much debate, the Hartford brothers decided to open 100 supermarkets. The new stores proved hugely successful. By 1938, the company operated 1,100 supermarkets. The shift to the self-service supermarket model in 1936 was revolutionary. Imagine, instead of asking a clerk to get each item from behind a counter, you could now walk the aisles yourself, picking products off the shelves. A&P empowered the shopper. By 1950, A&P operated 4,000 larger supermarkets and 500 smaller stores. On average, each supermarket replaced 6 older combination stores. Sales reached $3.2 billion. These supermarkets weren't just bigger, they offered more. The newer combination stores included space for meat, fresh produce, and dairy, as well as traditional grocery items. It was like going from a corner candy shop to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. A&P was also a pioneer in developing strong private labels. Who could forget 8 o'clock coffee? It was so popular that many people went to A&P just to buy that coffee. Or the Jane Parker baked goods. They weren't just ordinary private label products. They were high quality and loved by many. A&P built its own factories to produce these items, from baked goods, coffee, and dairy, to canned and frozen groceries. This self-manufacturing capability helped A&P control costs and keep prices low. They also bypassed wholesalers, buying directly from manufacturers in bulk, achieving significantly lower costs than competitors. A&P also used other smart marketing strategies, like their China giveaway program through grocery purchases. Imagine building your beautiful family dinnerware set just by doing your weekly shopping. A&P didn't just change how we shopped, they improved Americans' nutrition habits. By making a wide variety of food products available at lower costs, they turned items once considered luxuries into everyday staples. They were democratizing the American diet. In this golden era, A&P wasn't just a store, it was part of the community. The butchers didn't just cut meat, they knew your name, asked about your family, made sure you had the best cut for Sunday dinner. From clerks to managers, everyone at A&P seemed to take pride in their job and their community. It felt like being part of a big, friendly family. A&P's immense success drew unwanted attention. In the 1940s, the U.S. government accused A&P of violating antitrust laws, arguing their vertical integration, manufacturing, warehousing, retail allowed them to unfairly undercut prices. The lawsuit lasted for years, but A&P ultimately avoided being broken up, although they had to close their fresh produce brokerage operation that supplied competitors. In 1950, Time magazine put the Hartford brothers on its cover. John Hartford was quoted saying, "I don't know of any grocery man who wants to keep small. I don't see how a businessman can limit his growth and still be healthy." A&P had firmly established itself as a pillar of American retail. Their influence and legacy extended through even the most turbulent times. Do you have any memories of shopping at A&P? What kind of coffee or private label products do you remember most? Let us know your thoughts and memories in the comments section below. The seeds of decline after the Hartfords. After the brilliant heads of the Hartford family were no longer directly involved in management, John Hartford passed away in 1951 and George Hartford in 1957, A&P began sowing the seeds of decline right in the 1950s. Ralph Berger, who had been the company's longtime secretary and later chairman, took the helm. While A&P still reported record revenues under Berger, his leadership style lacked the strategic market vision that John Hartford had. Core issues began to become apparent: lack of reinvestment. A&P, although publicly listed, remained controlled by Berger, who headed both the corporation and the John A. Hartford Foundation. Most of A&P's profits were paid out as dividends to meet the income needs of the foundation and heirs. A&P was also adamantly against taking on debt, leaving depreciation as the only source of funds for upgrades. While competitors were investing in larger, more modern supermarkets, A&P was slow to update its store system. By 1970, A&P stores were generally significantly smaller and older than their competitors. Dr. Kurt Jetta, CEO of Tabs Group, noted that in 2015, some A&P stores looked like nothing had changed in 30 years. Mark Levinson, author of a book on A&P, also wrote that by the late 50s, A&P was no longer a low-price retailer, just another retailer. Over-reliance on private labels. It's true that A&P pioneered the introduction of private labels, and some, like 8 o'clock coffee, became household names. However, after a 1951 Supreme Court decision allowed manufacturers to set minimum retail prices, discount retailing exploded, fueled by television advertising, which increased demand for national brands. Counter to this trend, A&P invested a significant amount of its scarce capital into expanding manufacturing, including $25 million to build the world's largest food plant in Horseheads, New York. Because A&P's stores were smaller, their shelves were dominated by private label products, and customers often found national brands out of stock. By the 1980s, A&P heavily focused on its private label, which wasn't necessarily bad, but it meant losing the presence of national brands that were becoming increasingly popular. This made A&P like a movie theater that only showed independent films while people wanted to see the latest blockbusters. Another source also pointed out that during its golden age, A&P was known for offering a wide array of products, which might contradict the later overfocus on private labels to the exclusion of national brands. Higher labor costs than competitors. Since A&P stopped expanding, the proportion of long-tenured and higher-paid workers grew. This wasn't an issue for most competitors, as they were expanding rapidly and had fewer tenured workers. To offset higher labor costs, A&P tried to operate stores with fewer employees, leading to long checkout lines and empty shelves. Labor costs and pension obligations were a factor that made life harder for A&P, and these obligations remained a major problem even after A&P emerged from its first bankruptcy. Dr. Kurt Jetta described A&P as a zombie retailer from about 1992 and suggested the real culprit was a management team that allowed their sales to tank dramatically, although he conceded labor and pension obligations made things worse. However, another report from 2022 indicated that the Union Collective Bargaining Agreements, CBAs, A&P agreed to maintain. After the first bankruptcy made it difficult to close underperforming stores due to bumping clauses, lack of consistent leadership, and long-term vision. After the Hartford era, A&P went through a succession of presidents, but none could reverse the downward trend. The lack of a steady hand at the helm and a long-term vision left the A&P ship adrift without direction in a sea of change. These problems were not addressed. A&P began to fall behind. Desperate attempts and increasing competition. The successors to Ralph Burger were unable to stop the decline. In the 1970s, A&P tried different strategies, including the WEO warehouse economy outlet store format, but most A&P stores were too small to effectively implement this program. In 1975, Jonathan Scott became chairman and closed 1,500 stores in just 3 years. A&P also began building more modern stores, including larger grocery/drug combination stores under the Family Mart name. However, profits began to decline again in 1978 due to high inflation. With its stock price low, the John A. Hartford Foundation finally decided it couldn't wait any longer. In 1979, Erevan Haub, the owner of Germany's Tengelmann Group, began buying shares. By 1981, Tengelmann owned a majority stake in A&P. Under new leadership, A&P tried various store concepts, including Plus, based on the German discount model, but unsuccessful in the US, and Future Store, larger, more modern supermarkets, but none were widely implemented. A&P also began another major store closure program and started acquiring other chains, often keeping their original names. They bought Kohl's Food Stores, Dominion in Canada, Waldbaum's, and the Food Emporium in the New York metro area, Farmer Jack in Michigan, and later Pathmark, a longtime rival. Despite these efforts, A&P continued to face challenges. By the early 1990s, the company was struggling again due to the economy and new competition, especially from Walmart. A&P had to close many stores in the South, shrinking its footprint. By the early 2000s, A&P found itself on the defensive. The grocery world was changing rapidly, and big retailers like Walmart were reshaping the landscape. Walmart's unbeatable prices and convenience drew customers away from traditional grocery stores. But A&P's problems ran deeper than that. For decades, the company had focused on squeezing every possible penny from its suppliers, a tactic that might temporarily boost profits, but came at a steep long-term cost. Instead of asking, "What do our customers want?" logically, A&P management often asked, "What more can we get from our suppliers?" This narrow, profit-driven thinking prevented the company from evolving in ways that mattered to the modern shopper. That mindset blinded the company to changing consumer expectations. While competitors refreshed store layouts, added amenities like salad bars, liquor stores, and created inviting retail spaces, A&P lagged behind. Many of their stores looked dated and tired, like they were frozen in time. Customers weren't just looking for groceries anymore. They wanted an experience, a feeling of belonging, and a place that seemed to understand them. A&P's drab aisles failed to meet the moment, and the company failed to create the emotional connection that successful chains were building with their customers. Meanwhile, the American food culture was rapidly changing. Shopping lists that once revolved around staples like milk, eggs, and canned goods now included almond milk, organic kale, cage-free eggs, and fair trade coffee. Consumers sought out special diets, from gluten-free to vegan, and wanted fresher, locally sourced ingredients. Chains like Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, and the Fresh Market understood this shift. They created carefully curated spaces that celebrated food trends and connected with health-conscious, value-driven shoppers. A&P, however, didn't keep up. Customers looking for non-GMO yogurt or cage-free eggs often left empty-handed or shopped elsewhere, where their values were better understood. The 2013 Deloitte report highlighted this retail transformation. The average American shopper now visited 5 different stores to complete a full grocery trip. One-stop shopping was no longer the standard. Instead, consumers cherry-picked, buying organic produce at the co-op, paper goods at the warehouse club, and specialty snacks from smaller grocery stores. This fragmentation hurt chains that relied on being everything to everyone. A&P, with its wide but shallow offerings, was particularly vulnerable. Customers wanted choice and specialization, not shelves full of the same brands they could find anywhere. A&P's failure to meet the new demand for a tailored experience exacerbated their difficulties. Meanwhile, the broader grocery battlefield was also shifting. Walmart and Target entered the food space aggressively, seeing groceries as a way to draw shoppers into stores for higher margin items. These giants didn't need to make money on eggs or cereal. They could afford to accept very low, or no, profit margins, because groceries were just one part of a much larger revenue engine. In contrast, A&P couldn't match that scale or flexibility, and it became increasingly difficult to compete with these giants on price, convenience, or experience. Dr. Kurt Jetta, an expert on consumer packaged goods, called A&P a zombie retailer from about 1992. He cited 3 key factors that led to A&P's demise: store size, too small compared to competitors; supplier bullying culture, allocating shelf space based on slotting fees rather than customer demand; and lack of scale efficiency, disorganized geographic expansion, and maintaining too many different banners. 2 bankruptcies and the inevitable end. By the early 2000s, A&P had sold its Kohl's Food Stores chain and exited Vermont and New Hampshire, reducing its store count to 500. They also sold the 8 O'Clock coffee brand and later sold their Canadian division to Metro Inc. In 2007, A&P made a bold move by acquiring longtime rival Pathmark for $1.4 billion. This acquisition instantly made A&P the largest supermarket operator in the New York metro area, but it also brought competitive challenges and debt. To address Federal Trade Commission concerns, A&P had to divest some Pathmark and Waldbaum stores. Despite attempts to turn things around, A&P's challenges only deepened. In 2010, the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, burdened by debt and poor performance. After restructuring, A&P emerged in 2012 as a private company. Sam Martin took over as CEO. For a brief moment, there was hope for a comeback. In 2013 and 2014, the company made modest profits, the first time in years. Martin introduced a 5-step plan, focusing on building the team, strengthening finances, improving operations, reconnecting with customers, and enhancing the in-store experience. But the harsh reality quickly set in. Competitors had innovated in ways A&P couldn't match. Big box stores offered unbeatable discounts, and specialty stores catered to niche markets like organic and local goods. Debt and poor performance continued to weigh them down. By 2014 to 2015, A&P was back to heavy losses. A&P's inability to find a suitable buyer for the company led to the inevitable. On July 19, 2015, A&P filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy a second time. This time, the verdict was clear. The once dominant grocer had lost its way. Industry experts agreed that A&P had clung to outdated strategies for too long. Immediately, A&P closed 25 underperforming stores. The next day, A&P announced 76 stores had been sold to Albertsons, owner of Acme Markets. Stop & Shop bought 25 stores. The Key Food Cooperative bought 23 stores. Other local grocers also acquired units. The second bankruptcy was a contentious event, especially for the approximately 26,000 unionized A&P employees. Unions fought to protect jobs and pension severance obligations. A&P management blamed union obligations and bumping clauses for making it difficult to close money-losing stores. However, other sources argued the core issue was ineffective management, lack of investment, and declining revenue. Union obligations and pension issues were problems even after the first bankruptcy, and union contracts containing bumping clauses made closing underperforming stores difficult after the first bankruptcy. Ultimately, the remaining A&P stores closed their doors on November 25, 2015, just before Thanksgiving. Even the last remaining division, Best Sellers Liquor Stores, was auctioned off in 2016. What about A&P makes you feel nostalgic? Share it in the comments below. Lessons from the fall and the lingering legacy. The collapse of A&P is a stark reminder that even the most beloved brands need to evolve. It wasn't a single failure that brought the chain down, but a series of missed opportunities. A&P's focus on suppliers rather than shoppers left them unprepared for a world where food retail demanded curation, innovation, and emotional connection. While other grocers adapted and thrived, A&P stood still. A&P's legacy lives on. They were pioneers in many areas: direct sales, mail order, premium strategies, private label products. They redefined the shopping experience by introducing the self-service supermarket. Some brands created by A&P still exist, most notably 8 O'Clock Coffee. Many modern chains today have learned from A&P, including Walmart. The story of A&P is a cautionary tale. It shows the impermanence of a corporate entity, no matter how large, when it fails to innovate, fails to adapt to a changing consumer landscape, and creates a large, stifling bureaucracy. A&P was devoured by the very competitors it helped create. A&P's journey from a small tea store in Manhattan to a retail giant, and finally ending in 2015, is an important chapter in American business history. For many, A&P was more than just a store. It was the place with the smell of fresh roasted coffee, where you found your favorite Jane Parker cake. It was where you knew the butchers, where you felt at home. It was memories of childhood, of family, of those weekly shopping trips. They may be gone, but the memories of A&P still linger for many. If you've watched the whole story about A&P, leave a comment with the word A&P or Great Atlantic to let us know. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Sears history. What happened to Sears? Remember the excitement of getting your first bike at Sears or flipping through the wish book? For generations, Sears symbolized the American dream. But now, its silent aisles and lost catalog evoke nostalgia instead of thrill. What went wrong? Join us as we explore the rise and fall of this retail giant, a cautionary tale of innovation and heartbreak. The beginnings of Sears. Let's rewind the clock and set our retail time machine for 1886. We find ourselves in North Redwood, Minnesota, where a young Richard Warren Sears is working a humdrum job as a station agent. Life takes an unexpected turn when a shipment of gold, watches, unwanted, and destined for who knows where, lands on his platform. Now, most folks would have seen just another day at the station, but Sears? He sees an opportunity, a chance to make something of himself. He buys the entire lot of watches, a bold move for a young man with limited means, and then flips them to other station agents for a small profit. This little venture sets something ablaze within him. He realizes he's got a knack for this business thing. Fueled by this newfound confidence, Sears takes a leap of faith. He quits his job and sets up shop in Minneapolis, selling watches through the then novel concept of mail order. A year later, he joins forces with a skilled watchmaker named Alva Roebuck, and together they form a partnership that will become a retail legend, Sears, Roebuck and Company. Now, you might be thinking, so they sold some watches by mail. What's the big deal? But this was no ordinary mail order business. Sears and Roebuck weren't just selling watches, they were selling convenience, accessibility, and a whole new way to shop. Their timing was impeccable, tapping into a growing desire among rural Americans for access to goods they couldn't find in their local general stores. What started as a simple watch business was about to blossom into a retail empire that would reshape the American landscape and redefine how we shop. The first retail store. Let's zip forward in our retail time machine to 1925. Sears has been the undisputed king of mail order for decades, but the winds of change are blowing. America is urbanizing, cars are becoming increasingly common, and consumer habits are evolving. Sensing a shift in the landscape, Sears makes a bold, some might say risky, move. On February 2nd, 1925, they open their very first retail store on Chicago's West Side. It's a gamble, a departure from their tried-and-true mail-order model, but it's a gamble that pays off handsomely. The store is an instant success, a bustling hub of activity that combines the vast selection of the catalog with the immediate gratification of in-person shopping. Customers can finally see and touch the products they've only dreamed about, experiencing them in a tangible way. This first store marks a pivotal moment in Sears's history, a turning point that sets the stage for a new era of expansion. Over the next few decades, Sears opens hundreds of retail stores across the country, becoming an integral part of communities from coast to coast. These stores become more than just places to shop. They're community gathering places, offering everything from appliances and clothing to auto repair and even photography studios. Sears, once a mail-order pioneer, has successfully transformed itself into a brick-and-mortar behemoth, demonstrating its remarkable adaptability and its ability to stay ahead of the curve. This transformation would propel them to even greater heights, solidifying their position as a retail giant for much of the 20th century. The Golden Age of Sears. Step into our retail time machine once again, and let's set the dial for the 1950s, the Golden Age of Sears. Imagine a bustling Main Street, USA, the heart of every town, and there it is, the iconic Sears sign, beckoning shoppers with its promise of quality and convenience. Sears isn't just a store, it's a destination, a one-stop shop for everything the American dream entails. As you step inside, you're greeted by a dazzling array of products, a symphony of colors and textures. The latest washing machines gleam alongside stylish clothing racks, power tools hum in anticipation, and the air is filled with the tantalizing scent of popcorn from the candy counter, mingling with the rich aroma of new leather from the shoe department. Children tug at their parents' sleeves, eyes wide with wonder at the captivating toy displays. It's more than just shopping. It's an experience, a family outing, a source of both excitement and comfort. But what truly set Sears apart wasn't just the sheer volume of goods they offered. It was the personalized customer service that made you feel like a valued guest, a member of the Sears family. Need a new refrigerator? The salesman isn't just there to make a quick sale. He takes the time to understand your needs, helping you find the perfect model for your family. And if, heaven forbid, something goes wrong with your purchase? No problem. Sears' legendary satisfaction guarantee has your back. This commitment to customer service built trust and loyalty, making Sears more than just a store. It was a trusted partner in building a better life for millions of Americans. The Sears of the 1950s was a retail powerhouse at its peak, a symbol of American prosperity and ingenuity. What's your most memorable experience with Sears? Share it with us in the comments. A loss of trust and optimism. The shockwaves from Sears' downfall were amplified by the perceived indifference of those at the helm. While loyal employees faced unemployment and customers mourned the loss of a beloved institution, executives seemed preoccupied with financial maneuvering rather than preserving the legacy of this American icon. It was as if they had forgotten that Sears was more than just a business. It was an integral part of the nation's social and cultural fabric. The impact reverberated through communities as well. In many towns, Sears had been the anchor store in the local mall, drawing shoppers and generating foot traffic for surrounding businesses. When Sears closed its doors, it left a gaping hole, both literally in the mall and figuratively in the community's heart. Other businesses that relied on Sears' presence often struggled to survive, leading to a domino effect of closures and a decline in the local economy. Towns that once bustled with weekend shoppers were left with empty parking lots and a sense of desolation. For many Americans, witnessing Sears' slow decline was like watching a slow-motion car crash. They could see the inevitable outcome, but felt powerless to intervene. Each announcement of store closures or brand sales was met with a mix of nostalgia, sadness, and resignation. Social media became a virtual gathering place for people to share their Sears memories, offering eulogies for a cherished institution that was fading away. The demise of Sears also marked the end of a certain kind of American optimism, the belief in a brighter future built on hard work, ingenuity, and the promise of upward mobility. The true impact. The demise of Sears wasn't merely a business failure, it was a societal shift, a seismic event that reverberated through the lives of countless Americans, leaving a void that many are still grappling with today. For generations, Sears had been more than just a store. It was a trusted companion, a symbol of quality and dependability, and a cornerstone of communities across the nation. Its decline and eventual bankruptcy represented a profound loss, a rupture in the fabric of American life. Think about the families who had relied on Sears for everything from baby clothes to lawn mowers, from tools to appliances. For them, Sears' decline wasn't just about finding new places to shop. It was about bidding farewell to a cherished part of their family history, a familiar presence that had been a constant throughout their lives. How many of us can recall those nostalgic moments spent with our parents or grandparents, poring over the thick Sears catalog, dreaming of future purchases and planning for the year ahead? Those catalog browsing sessions weren't simply about acquiring goods. They were cherished family traditions, opportunities to connect, to share aspirations, and to build lasting memories. And let's not forget the loyal Sears employees, many of whom had dedicated decades of their lives to the company. These weren't just jobs, they were careers, a source of pride, a sense of belonging to the Sears family. The company's decline brought uncertainty, heartbreak, and, for many, unemployment. Imagine the emotional toll on those who found themselves suddenly jobless in their 50s or 60s, facing a job market that had transformed dramatically since they first donned their Sears name tags. For countless customers, the loss of Sears was deeply personal. It wasn't just a place to buy things. It was a place where life unfolded, where milestones were marked, and where memories were made. It was where you got your first bicycle, where your mom bought her first washing machine, where your dad taught you how to choose the right tools. Each store closure felt like losing a piece of your own personal history, a tangible reminder of time's relentless march. Craftsman, Kenmore, and Die Hard. Now let's delve into the iconic brands that became synonymous with quality and reliability, brands that were built by Sears and etched into the fabric of American life. First up, Craftsman. These weren't just tools, they were a symbol of craftsmanship, a badge of honor for the DIY enthusiast. Fathers proudly passed down their well-worn Craftsman toolboxes to their sons, knowing that the lifetime guarantee meant these tools would outlast them both. Imagine this. You're working on a project, and your trusty Craftsman wrench snaps. No problem. You simply take it back to Sears, and they replace it. No questions asked. That's the kind of customer service that built unwavering loyalty. Then there was Kenmore, the backbone of the American household. These appliances weren't just functional, they were reliable workhorses, built to withstand the demands of everyday life. From washing machines that could tackle mountains of laundry to refrigerators that kept food fresh for a growing family, Kenmore was there, simplifying life for millions of Americans. And who could forget Die Hard batteries, the powerhouses that lived up to their name? They started cars in the harshest conditions, from the frigid depths of winter to the scorching heat of summer. Die Hard became so synonymous with reliability that the phrase, "It's gotta die hard," was enough to assure anyone that a vehicle was up to the task. These brands weren't just products, they were promises kept, a testament to Sears' commitment to quality and customer satisfaction. They embodied the values of durability, dependability, and trustworthiness that were at the core of Sears' identity. The Sears Wish Book. But perhaps the most enchanting chapter in Sears' story unfolded every autumn when the highly anticipated Sears Christmas Wish Book arrived in mailboxes across the nation. This wasn't just a catalog, it was a passport to a world of childhood dreams, a portal to the magic of the holiday season. Children would spend countless hours poring over its colorful pages, their imaginations running wild as they circled the toys that captured their hearts. Bicycles with gleaming chrome fenders, dolls with eyes that seemed to follow you, train sets that promised endless hours of fun. The Wish Book was a treasure trove of possibilities. Parents, too, would secretly study those circled items, making mental notes for Christmas morning surprises. The Wish Book wasn't just about selling products, it was about creating memories, fostering anticipation, and capturing the spirit of giving and receiving that defines the holidays. It was a shared experience that brought families together, sparking conversations and creating a sense of excitement that permeated the entire season. The Wish Book became a beloved tradition, a symbol of hope and joy that transcended the mere act of shopping. It represented the power of dreams, the anticipation of Christmas morning, and the enduring magic of childhood. Even as the retail landscape changed and evolved, the Wish Book remained a cherished part of the Sears legacy, a reminder of a time when a simple catalog could transport us to a world of wonder and possibility. Sears Tower. As Sears' empire expanded, so did their aspirations. In 1973, they unveiled a breathtaking symbol of their dominance, the Sears Tower in Chicago. This magnificent skyscraper, piercing the sky with its 110 stories, stood as the world's tallest building for a quarter of a century. It was a towering testament to Sears' success, an exclamation point on their reign over the American retail landscape. Imagine standing on its observation deck, gazing out at the sprawling cityscape. From that vantage point, you could see 4 states, a fitting metaphor for Sears' vast reach and influence across the nation. The Sears Tower became an iconic landmark, a symbol of American ingenuity and corporate ambition. It represented the pinnacle of Sears' achievements, a physical manifestation of their decades of success. But even as the Sears Tower stood tall, the retail landscape was undergoing a seismic shift. New competitors were emerging, consumer preferences were changing, and Sears would soon face challenges that would test their resilience and adaptability. Mounting losses. As the 21st century began, Sears found itself teetering on the brink. The merger with Kmart, far from being a magic bullet, had failed to deliver the hoped-for revival. Their stores, once bustling hubs of activity, were now often perceived as dated and uninviting. Their once revered brands like Craftsman and Kenmore were losing their luster as newer, more innovative competitors emerged. Perhaps most concerningly, a new generation of shoppers was coming of age with little to no emotional connection to the Sears name. They had grown up in a world of online shopping, big box stores, and instant gratification, a world where Sears seemed increasingly irrelevant. By 2010, the financial picture was bleak. Sears Holdings reported its first annual loss in decades, a stark indication that the company was in serious trouble. The once mighty retailer, a symbol of American ingenuity and consumerism, was now hemorrhaging money and losing customers at an alarming rate. The decline that had begun as a slow trickle in the 1970s had become a torrent, threatening to engulf the entire company. Sears was trapped in a downward spiral, struggling to adapt to a rapidly changing retail landscape and failing to connect with a new generation of consumers. The future looked increasingly uncertain for this once iconic brand. The question was, could Sears find a way to reinvent itself and stave off the inevitable, or was its fate sealed? The fall of an American icon. Remember those bustling Sears stores filled with the promise of the American dream? By 2017, they were becoming a rare sight, like relics of a bygone era. The retail giant that once boasted over 3,500 locations across the nation had dwindled to a mere 685 stores. It was a heartbreaking spectacle, like watching a mighty oak tree wither and shed its leaves, branch by branch. But the store closures weren't the only blows that Sears suffered. The company began selling off its most prized possessions, the iconic brands that had been woven into the fabric of American life for generations. Imagine the shock and dismay of loyal customers when Craftsman tools, the trusty companions of countless DIY enthusiasts and home workshops, were sold to Stanley Black & Decker in 2017. The Craftsman name had been synonymous with Sears for so long that it felt like a betrayal, a loss of identity. And the dismantling didn't stop there. Kenmore appliances, known for their reliability and value, were put up for sale, as were die-hard batteries, the powerhouses that had jump-started countless cars on frigid winter mornings. It was as if Sears was selling off pieces of its very soul, leaving longtime customers heartbroken and wondering what, if anything, would remain of the once proud retailer. This desperate shedding of assets was a clear sign that Sears was in dire straits, struggling to stay afloat in a retail landscape that had dramatically changed. The company that had once been a symbol of American ingenuity and consumerism was now fighting for its very survival, clinging to a fading legacy. Please comment 1 to let me know you'll be watching this video until the end. Bankruptcy. The final blow came in October 2018, when Sears Holdings, burdened by debt, declining sales, and a failure to adapt to the changing retail landscape, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. It was a somber day for American retail, marking the end of an era for a 126-year-old institution that had once been a cornerstone of the nation's economy and a symbol of its consumer culture. The company that had weathered 2 world wars, the Great Depression, and countless economic storms had finally succumbed. It was a stark reminder that even the most iconic and seemingly invincible brands can falter and fall in the face of relentless competition, shifting consumer preferences, and disruptive technological innovations. Sears' bankruptcy was a watershed moment, a symbol of the challenges facing traditional brick-and-mortar retailers in the age of e-commerce and the rise of online giants like Amazon. It served as a cautionary tale for other established retailers, underscoring the importance of adapting to changing times, embracing innovation, and staying relevant to a new generation of consumers. The beginning of the end. Even as Sears basked in the glow of its success, storm clouds were gathering on the horizon. New competitors, leaner and hungrier, were emerging, ready to challenge the retail giant's dominance. The 1970s brought a wave of discount and outlet stores, with names like Walmart and Kmart popping up across the country. These newcomers offered a different kind of shopping experience. No frills, low prices, and a focus on value that resonated with budget-conscious consumers. Initially, Sears seemed unfazed. They were the undisputed kings of retail, with a long and storied history of success. But these new rivals were not to be underestimated. While Sears rested on its laurels, Walmart and Kmart were busy building efficient supply chains, mastering the art of low-cost retail, and attracting a growing customer base. The catalog disappears. But perhaps the most significant misstep in Sears' long and winding journey came in 1993, when they made the fateful decision to discontinue their iconic catalog. Now, you might be thinking, well, catalogs were becoming outdated in the age of the internet, right? But the Sears catalog was more than just a book of products. It was a powerful distribution network, a valuable customer database, and a beloved brand, all rolled into one. Here's the real kicker. Sears killed its catalog just as a little thing called e-commerce was starting to take off. Amazon, founded just a year later in 1994, essentially took the Sears catalog model and brought it into the digital age, revolutionizing online shopping. Sears had all the ingredients to become an e-commerce powerhouse: the infrastructure, the customer base, the brand recognition, and the logistical expertise. But instead of embracing this opportunity, they essentially handed it to Jeff Bezos on a silver platter. It's a classic example of a company failing to recognize and adapt to a disruptive innovation. Sears, once a pioneer of mail-order retail, missed the chance to become a leader in the burgeoning world of online shopping. This decision would haunt Sears for years to come, as they watched Amazon grow into the e-commerce behemoth it is today. What was your favorite item to shop for at Sears? The Kmart merger. Fast forward to 2005, and Sears, facing mounting challenges and declining sales, made a desperate move: a merger with their longtime rival, Kmart. The $11 billion deal was touted as a way to create a retail powerhouse, a combined force that could take on the mighty Walmart. On paper, it seemed like a logical strategy. Two struggling giants, pooling their resources and expertise, could potentially regain their lost market share. But in reality, it was more like tying two sinking ships together and hoping for a miracle. Both Sears and Kmart were burdened by outdated business models, inefficient operations, and a failure to adapt to the changing demands of consumers. The merger did little to address these fundamental problems. Instead, it created a larger, more complex organization with even more challenges to overcome. The hoped-for synergy and revitalization never materialized. The merged company continued to struggle, losing ground to its more nimble and innovative competitors. The Kmart merger, rather than being a lifeline, became a symbol of Sears' decline, a desperate gamble that ultimately failed to save the once mighty retailer. Edward Lampert. Enter Edward Lampert, the hedge fund manager who orchestrated the Sears-Kmart merger and became the CEO of the newly formed Sears Holdings. Lampert was a Wall Street prodigy, known for his financial wizardry and his ability to spot undervalued assets. But running a sprawling retail empire? That was a different ballgame altogether. Instead of investing in the stores, improving the customer experience, and adapting to the changing retail landscape, Lampert focused on cost-cutting and asset liquidation. Imagine you're running a marathon, and instead of training, fueling your body, and strategizing, you decide to sell your running shoes and ration your water. That's essentially what Lampert did with Sears. He sold off valuable real estate, slashed inventory, and reduced staff, all in an effort to boost short-term profits. The consequences were predictable and devastating. Sears stores, once vibrant and inviting, became increasingly run down and understocked. Customer service, once a hallmark of the Sears experience, deteriorated as staff morale plummeted. Lampert's financial maneuvering might have made sense on a spreadsheet, but it failed to address the fundamental problems plaguing Sears. The company was losing its relevance, its connection with customers, and its ability to compete in a rapidly evolving retail environment. Lampert's reign as CEO would become a controversial chapter in Sears' history, a period marked by declining sales, store closures, and a growing sense of despair among employees and loyal customers. The Sears catalog. But hold on, because the story's about to get even more exciting. In 1893, a game-changing development sweeps across the nation. The government introduces rural free delivery. This may sound mundane, but for Sears, it's a stroke of genius. Imagine, suddenly, Sears can reach potential customers in the most far-flung corners of the country, places previously beyond the reach of their mail-order operation. And they seize this opportunity with gusto. The Sears catalog, once a humble pamphlet showcasing watches and jewelry, transforms into a colossal tome, bursting with an unimaginable array of goods. Let's step back in time and imagine you're a farmer's wife in 1900. Your nearest store is a long, arduous journey away. Then one day, this massive catalog arrives in your mailbox. As you flip through its pages, a whole world unfolds before your eyes. Sewing machines to lighten your workload, bicycles to shorten your errands, musical instruments to brighten your evenings, even prefabricated houses, all available with the stroke of a pen and a money order. The Sears catalog becomes more than just a shopping guide. It's a portal to a world of possibilities, a wish book that brings dreams within reach. Children pore over the toy section, circling their heart's desires. Families gather around the catalog, debating the merits of different tools or home furnishings. It's a social event, a source of entertainment, and a connection to the wider world. In a way, the Sears catalog was the Amazon of its day, the Netflix of its time, delivering convenience and entertainment straight to your doorstep long before the internet or television became commonplace. It revolutionized rural life and cemented Sears' place as a retail powerhouse, a company that understood the needs and desires of its customers in a way that no one else did. Sears Kit Homes. But Sears' ambition didn't stop at filling your mailbox with enticing goods. They were constantly innovating, pushing the boundaries of what mail order could achieve. By 1908, they took a giant leap forward with a truly audacious offering: the Sears Kit Home. That's right, you could order an entire house from their catalog. Imagine that. All the lumber, nails, windows, doors, even the kitchen sink delivered right to your train station, along with detailed instructions for assembling your dream home. Over 70,000 of these kit homes were sold between 1908 and 1940, a testament to their popularity and affordability. They offered a pathway to homeownership for families who might not have otherwise been able to afford it. Sears wasn't just selling products, they were selling the American dream, packaged and delivered with remarkable efficiency. These kit homes dotted the landscape, becoming a symbol of Sears' ingenuity and their commitment to serving their customers' needs in truly innovative ways. They stand today as a reminder of a time when a company dared to think outside the box and revolutionized not just retail, but the very concept of homeownership. Sears' willingness to embrace new ideas and cater to the evolving needs of their customers would continue to drive their success for decades to come. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share the Who Remembers channel with your friends. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time for more memory-filled stories.